Hi and welcome. I'm Steve Martorano, and this is the Behavioral Corner. You're invited to hang with us as we discuss the ways we live today, the choices we make, the things we do, and how they affect our health and well-being. So you're on the corner, the Behavioral Corner. Please hang around a while. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Behavioral Corner. It's me again, Steve Martorano. If you haven't discovered us by now, we're the podcast about everything, because everything affects our behavioral health. And so we can range far and wide to find folks to tell us about what they're doing and how that plays into what we're looking for, which is information that can help you live better, make better decisions, be spiritually sounder, physically fit, the whole 9 yards. Anyway, it's all made possible by our underwriting partners, Retreat Behavioral Health, and you'll hear more about them down the road. It's a rare person that can combine one passion and make it their life, but three is a really amazing trifecta. The three passions of our guest today are travel, yoga, and service to others. That's a pretty nifty triple play, and it is what our guest Jordan Ashley has accomplished. Jordan is the founder and executive director of Souljourn Yoga, and that's why we're here with her to talk about those three passions, how she brought them all together, and what her nonprofit is dedicated to. Jordan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me, Steve.
Yeah, I admire that, because an overworked word in our language is passion. I have a passion for the weather, or I have a passion for clothes. Real passions are hard to come by. Three of them are amazing. So just briefly tell us about those three things and how they resulted in Souljourn.
So to make a long story very short, I had done my undergrad in journalism and lived abroad in Southeast Asia and was a reporter, and simultaneously was also teaching yoga when I got back to the US and was freelancing. And I saw that there was a really big disconnect in terms of how yoga studios in the States were operating, in terms of, saying that they were doing the good work, but maybe not actually having it be more about self than selflessness. And honestly, living abroad was an incredible experience. And for me, travel has always been the best education. Of course, realizing that, a lot of people don't have access to it. And even more so, a lot of the people who I was connecting with and interviewing when I was in Southeast Asia didn't necessarily have access to mindfulness, even though for so many of us, we think of, doing a yoga pose or being able to sit and meditate, as something that everyone is able to do. But if you don't have sustenance or shelter or support, you're not going to carve out your day to be able to engage in these kinds of activities, especially if you're worried about where your next meal is coming from. And anyways, I guess this is turning into a longer story than I had anticipated.
No. It's great. It's interesting you mentioned a disconnect in that context, because, yeah, you're right. A lot of people look at yoga, whether they look at it beneficially or just exercise, as an addendum to their life, something they're able to do because they've got some time and some access. You talked about the disconnect. A little more about that. What did you see in New York yoga facilities that you thought was lacking specifically?
So specifically, very few studios or teachers that I either worked with or worked for really went out on a limb in terms of doing what's known as seva, which is the Sanskrit word for together with or service. And so I found it really frustrating and honestly really hypocritical and disappointing that so many of these individuals kind of, pride themselves on being enlightened or holier than thou, be it doing kirtans or engaging in this, kind of higher spiritual, work. But then at the end of the day, they didn't necessarily want to go out of their way to do a fundraiser or to incorporate a donation into any of their retreats. And to me, that was the biggest thing that was missing from the space, because yoga retreats have become so popular, especially I would say in the last 10 or 15 years. Wellness as a whole, it's a $1 billion industry.
Mhm.
And so with that being, said, going to these countries and going to these destinations and really, using retreat in terms of the word to hide and not engage and to not have a cultural immersion and not really care or want to give back in any way, shape, or form was just like unbelievable to me. And so for me, I was like, I don't want to be a part of the system anymore. I'd rather create something of my own and build my own platform that is all about, being holistic in the true sense of the word when using travel. And for me, it's always been girls' education. I think over 130 million, young women are out of school globally, and for many different reasons, from menstruation to having to help their families to global warming. And so it really is, it's a crisis that 50% of our population isn't getting the same educational needs that the other 50% are getting. And so what we do is we include a $300 to $500 donation per person. So if you sign up and your friends sign up, that's already between $600 and $1,000 that's going out. And that goes to scholarships, it goes to building dormitories, to uniforms, to food, to supplies. And you actually get a chance when you're there to meet who we're giving to. And so it becomes about really changing the way that even people are donating. And so it's more about equality than hierarchy, because we're trying to even the playing field as much as possible so that there is that transparency, there is that connection, and there is that heart opening that occurs.
So many things come to mind when you talk about that disconnect and the way you saw yoga's role in this. Do you worry that too many people look at yoga and put it in the same category, I should say, as Pilates or CrossFit or some sort of physical activity that's divorced from its real meaning?
Absolutely. There's 8 limbs of yoga. If you look at it from a yogi philosophical standpoint, and so many people are just focused on the asana, which is only one out of the other 7. And so to be honest with you, I think for a lot of people, wanting to be more physically fit or more flexible or active, I think the gateway into yoga is just that. But I think the reason that so many people end up sticking around and end up having it be a lifelong practice, because it is a practice, right? It's not about mastery in the same sense as it would be maybe like another sport, like being able to do, I don't know, a triple Salchow if you're a figure skater, is that every time you show up on your mat, it's a completely new and different experience.
Right.
So
Yoga's a process. It's not something that has an end actually to it. So let's talk about the retreats, which I'm fascinated by. When and where were the first retreats held?
So the first retreat we did was in 2016 to Peru, which was amazing. It was me and a friend of mine who led it, and it was the very first yoga retreat either of us have ever done. We'd both been teaching for a long period of time, but I didn't want to go somewhere that at that point in time was deemed to be kind of oversaturated, where people are doing retreats. I really wanted to go somewhere that was maybe a bucket list destination. And so I think when choosing the destinations of where we go, it's kind of that sweet spot of, we've done Cambodia, so people might want to see Angkor Wat, or, going gorilla trekking in Rwanda. And so it is about taking people, out of their comfort zone and really going to these destinations that are a once in a lifetime experience. But what's so important about each place that we go to is that girls' education is being underserved. And so it really is about creating, really intentional partnerships with the on the ground NGOs and foundations that we're supporting and working with.
Yeah,
and
that's the other brilliant insight you bring to this effort, and that is that this isn't a bunch, if you'll forgive me, a bunch of sort of privileged Western travelers who parachute into a community and dazzle them with the sights and yoga, and you're really dedicated to bringing this retreat experience and tying it into the community. Tell us how you do that.
So one of the things that have grown out of this, and this is what I'm currently working on in lieu of kind of doing the retreats and everything else, and this is in alignment with my current, PhD dissertation. It's about making yoga more accessible to the young women who we are supporting and working with, and by doing so, we're actually teaching them how to teach yoga, and then they can then decide, do they teach it for themselves, to their parents, to their community, to one another, or do they just completely leave it at the door if they don't like it? And so that's been a huge thing for me, not only personally, but also as a foundation, and being able to generate our own project that can go deep instead of wide, and having that kind of impact by being able to teach the skill set so that they can then pass it on and do with it as they see fit.
This donation that comes out of the fee, as it were, for the retreat, how do you distribute that? How do you identify the agencies that get the money?
So we have a process in terms of, like, hopefully what other people do as well, is we have due diligence that we need to follow. And so usually it's through word of mouth or personal connection that we end up partnering up with these organizations. Other times, honestly, it's just been doing, independent research. And so making sure that they're in alignment with our ethics and our principles, in terms of always making sure that they're coming from a place of equality, and not kind of replicating, power structures, which unfortunately, you see a lot of NGOs do, where they're still kind of implementing, be it language or imagery, that to me is very reminiscent of colonialism or imperialism. And so that's something that from the get-go, we're very verbal about saying that's not something that we engage with. And that's actually something that we have cultural sensitivity guides that we give out before every retreat as well, to let people know kind of what to expect, not only the place where we're going, but also that's what's expected of them as well, in terms of, their behavior and their code of conduct. And so it's always about girls' education. I would say most of the organizations that we work with focus on secondary school. So young women who are, I would say, like 12 to 18, because that's such an important time. And that's oftentimes when these young women drop out of school as well, for various reasons.
What's your experience with the young women that you come in contact with? How familiar are they with yoga?
So what's been so interesting about our on-the-ground teacher training program, and that we ran in Rwanda, and that's what I'm currently doing in Morocco, is that maybe they've seen it on social media or on YouTube, and they might think yoga is kind of holding the thumb and pointer finger and doing this and meditating, or maybe they want to do something really physically demanding, like a handstand or something that they've seen on TikTok. But once you kind of peel back the layers and say it's about, mind, heart, and body, and that kind of union, that yoking, which the word, yoga means and originates from, it's the most incredible thing to witness. I've been working with the same group of girls now for almost 2 years, and they're now 16 and 17. When I started working with them, they were a little bit younger, and really just seeing them step into their own, and the kind of self-confidence that they exude. And they can each teach like a good, because I'm strict, they can each teach a good 30 to 45-minute yoga class, and it's all memorized. They're not using notes, and they design their own meditations, and they've said that it's helped them in other aspects of their lives as well, like giving presentations in class as well. And so yeah, what's so fascinating to me too is they all really love meditation. And I think it's that ability to kind of sit and breathe and be with yourself. It's something that I think so many of us take for granted, because
and in the chaotic circumstances of their lives, the idea that you can go to a place that's calm and quiet must be really liberating and a revelation for a lot of young girls. Jordan Ashley is our guest. She's founder and executive director of the nonprofit Souljourn Yoga. It is dedicated to raising money, as Jordan has said, to help educate young women and girls all over the world. Jordan, lots of places where girls are held down for a multitude of reasons are areas of civil strife or famine or drought. These are places that you probably can't get to right away, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking of Afghanistan, for instance, where, depending upon what foreign army is on the soil, women can go to school, and then that regime changes, and then they're back to being subjugated again. It must be frustrating for you to try to penetrate that.
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, because we are leading retreats and we are taking people to these different places, it's like safety, safety first, and making sure that we can even like get into the country, because of course there's oftentimes like a lot of, red tape. But something else that comes to mind, and it's one of my goals, if not for 2024, then for 2025. And someone's asked me about this before. It's about doing a retreat in the US. We've never done a retreat in the US. And the US, by all means, unfortunately, ticks a lot of the same boxes that many of the other countries and destinations that we work with do. And so that's a goal of mine, because I think it's important to also say, to turn the mirror on ourselves, being an American, and saying our system is broken. And there's many people and there's many young women who also need access to education and resources as well.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. One of the three passions that we talked about at the begin with, obviously, is you teach yoga to people. I want to learn a little bit more about that. Who's a candidate for being a yogi, if that's the right term. And also, if you would, spend some time talking about let's get into the weeds on what a retreat's like. If someone's sitting out there going, I'd love to go on a retreat, where will I be staying? What will I be eating? Who will be in charge when we're on the ground? All of that. So first, tell me about that first. Tell me about the nuts and bolts of the retreat.
So for the most part, we work with local tour operators. It's another great way to be able to support the economy in the country or the destination that we're visiting, is to be able to bring, livelihood to these individuals who've dedicated their lives to tourism and to creating these really incredible experiences for us. And so I think, leaning on someone else's expertise, especially someone who is indigenous or local to the place that we're visiting, has always been one of the highlights, because then you're really able to understand and to see things through their perspective. And so it becomes much more macro, as opposed to just being, micro and a bunch of, tourists kind of visiting a destination. We stay at places that, for the most part, we hope are sustainable and have the environment on their minds. We include packing lists and cultural sensitivity guides, as I mentioned as well, so people know what to expect beforehand. And then we have an itinerary that we co-create, both with the nonprofit that we're working with, and then also with the guides as well, which you can see on the website, and what to expect as well. So depending on where we go, it's going to be a little bit different. We always want each retreat to be a unique experience, and so not trying to replicate another destination or another place that we go as well, and really honoring the fact that we are dedicating time and place to being in said region.
How long are the retreats?
Between 6 nights and 10 nights.
Mm-hmm. And you've mentioned a couple of places that you've been to. You've mentioned the U.S. as a goal. Where are the other places you would like to bring Souljourn?
We've currently run retreats in 7 different countries, from South Africa, Rwanda, Morocco, Cambodia, the Tibetan Plateau in China, Peru, Nicaragua. We have our upcoming Morocco retreat this October, and Sri Lanka is in February. I might have missed a country or two because it's been a couple of years of doing this. But I'm always, open in terms of if people have ideas or locations or nonprofits that need support. We might be doing Jordan soon, which I'm really excited about. It's always a place I've wanted to go. And then also potentially Nepal as well. But what I will say is pre-COVID, my goal was to always do the retreats every single year in the same countries that we visit. So it's about longevity, instead of just saying, oh, this location's like cool for 2023, or this one's like cool for 2024. It's really about making sure that we're sustainable in that way, because the organizations that we donate to, and they really do benefit from our visit and from the retreats.
So you're a nonprofit. You're in the fundraising business, and getting the message out is important. So we're glad you can share that with us. Who's responding? Are these wealthy semi-wealthy individual women who want to go travel and serve? Or are you getting help from larger groups and maybe corporations?
I would say for our retreats are open to anyone, gender doesn't matter. We've had, men come on retreats before. And so I think men need to be a part of the conversation with, supporting girls' education globally. But for the most part, I would say it's professional women who want to have more than just a yoga holiday, who really care about, using their time off for good.
Yeah. Let me apologize to the guys. I forgot them. Of course, they could be involved. Do couples go on these things?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, several times we've had couples, and that's always really fun. I always think it's a good dynamic to have like a mix of people from either different parts of the country or different parts of the world or just different walks of life in general, because it makes for a much more interesting mix.
Yeah, that talk about a great idea when you're traveling with your partner to do something like this. It has more, it's way more than sightseeing. It could really be beneficial all the way around. So, what do people need to do to contribute? I mean, there's a way to contribute to you guys without doing the retreat, right?
Yeah, as I said, we have our on the ground yoga teacher training program, and that's our own project. And our goal is to be able to expand it to the other countries and destinations that we work with. So if people want to donate to that, that's on the website. That's a great way to have impact, because it really is about giving these young women the skill set, not only to empower themselves, but also their communities as well. And then we also do retreats and events. So depending on where you are in the world, we're doing a festival in the UK, September 16th and 17th, and then
a festival. What type of festival? Describe it.
It's called Replenish Festival. So it's actually these two incredible yoga teachers, Hannah and Chrissy. They put together this amazing festival, and all the funds go towards our on the ground yoga teacher training program. I've never had anyone do anything like that for Souljourn Yoga before, and so yeah, I'm excited. I've actually never been to a festival, so it'll be my first one, which I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I went to one a million years ago, and it was enough. But this is a great. It sounds like the perfect relationship to work, because people love going to festivals. Yeah. And by the way, if you could get Taylor Swift involved in this, you'd be well on your way. This is a fascinating stuff. Congratulations! It's such a great idea. Finally, with regard to learning to be a yoga instructor, how difficult is that? How long does it take?
I think anyone can teach yoga, and that's what I'm hoping our project, our on the ground training proves, is that you don't need to have 200 hours, and you don't have to go to a brick and mortar space that's going to charge you 3,000 and up US dollars. I think it's really about giving the skill set to anyone who wants to learn. And it's not even about mastering everything. It's like you learn by teaching. Like I'm a much more confident teacher than I was when I, finished my teacher training originally. It's just by doing. It's with anything in life. The more you do it, the better hopefully you get at it, because you learn from your mistakes and you evolve and you change and you have your ideas challenged as well. So hopefully that facilitates growth.
As an instructor, I don't know if this question even makes any sense, but I'll ask you. As an instructor, do you find it, which comes first? Does someone have to understand the essence of this practice first before they can even consider the techniques of it? I mean, we all sort of know it's about, as you said, sitting and stretching and all of that. That's technique. Is it important to know what we're dealing with, the essence of yoga and what it means?
I think it helps, but also I think like what I've seen firsthand, like with these women, be it in Morocco and Rwanda, is that they end up falling in love with it because it's a practice that they're cultivating on their own. So they're not so much like looking outwards into, what is being said about yoga, because that might not honestly align with their own, spiritual beliefs and practices. I think it's really about going inward and seeing, what works for you. I don't know if that's a roundabout way of answering it. But I think, as I said earlier, so many people, start their yoga practice because they want to be able to do something, or, touch their toes, or
Right.
do an arm balance, or like a cool, party trick. And so I think they then end up, coming back because they realize how amazing they feel afterwards, because it's just carving out that 60 minutes or 90 minutes or even 10 minutes that, you have for yourself. And it's great because you're in a room and you're with a lot of people, but you might all be doing the same thing, but you're also on your own individual and independent journey as well.
Well, thanks so much. I thought this was going to be informative. It certainly was, and it's inspiring as well, because it's such a great idea. People like to travel, they like to go to places, and sometimes they even like to help. And so putting them together is just a great idea. More information, you can find out about the retreats and how to donate. The website is souljournyoga.com, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And
Yeah.
it's all there. Jordan Ashley, you're how close are you to finishing your dissertation?
I have one more year, so it's like the home stretch.
What's the degree in?
It's sociology. So it's looking at yoga as an embodiment practice for empowerment for teen girls in the high Atlas Mountains in Morocco. So a whole long title, which I'm sure will get edited down, but that's currently what I'm working with.
Oh, good luck. Good luck there. Where do you see this whole thing in a year, 5 years?
I hope that our teacher training program has expanded and extended. And also, I think it's amazing for nonprofits, but also there's no reason why, as you said, corporations as well should be, using this skill set as well. Why the person in human resources could very easily guide a meditation, or someone who is middle management could also,
Yeah, well, these corporations are doing business in these places that you are going to and helping young women get educated. It's, there's a certain amount of self-interest they ought to consider and get behind something like this. Anyway, I'll let you enjoy. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but Jordan joins us from the UK, and I wanted to give a shout out not to Great Britain, but to Zoom, because our connection held up, and I'm happy about that. Jordan, thanks so much. I'd love to have you back after a while and see where this thing is, and we'll put this up and make sure people can access it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute joy.
Thank you. And thank you guys as well. Don't forget, the drill. You follow us, you like us, write a review, that whole thing. It helps the Behavioral Corner. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Retreat Behavioral Health has proudly been serving the community for over 10 years. Here at Retreat, we believe in the power of connection and quality care. We offer comprehensive, holistic, and compassionate treatment from industry-leading experts. Call 855-802-6600 or visit us at www.retreatbehavioralhealth.com to begin your journey today.
That's it for now. And make us a habit, hanging out at the Behavioral Corner. And when we're not hanging, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter on the Behavioral Corner.